Can you hear me again? I don't know why that does that. Every time it mutes me for some strange reason. Decent game. A lot more entertaining than the games that we've been watching a lot more recently, that's for sure. I think that when it comes down to what we expected to happen, 3 days is what Arteta's had with the full squad to try and change and work some new things. And did we improve? Yes, we did. We did improve a lot. I think there was a lot of improvements in that than what we saw. There's a lot of people tweeting out saying that nothing has changed, which I found a bit cynical. I don't think that is true at all. I think that there was a lot of more improvements than we've seen over the last 10 games or so. And we're going to go into some of that. And there's some disappointing things as well that we'll cover too. But it's also a chance for you guys to get your comments and your thoughts and your voices and opinions heard in our chat box too. We've got plenty of you in there. Yoan says, great improvement in a short time. Glenn Cook says, promising. I can't wait to see us when things start to gel. Junior Gunner says, no positives. Wow, that is a pessimistic view of the game. Matt Denny says it's short-sighted to think that there was no positives whatsoever. Shirag says, Pep took a year. Give him some time. Ashwin says, better in the attack. Glenn Cook says, promising. I can't wait to see. Oh, but he talks about you, Glenn. Ashwin says, Xhaka played really well, Tom. Suni says, we were more fluid. Tayyib says, Arsenal need better strikers. Let's talk about individually then. So improvements, positives. We created a lot more chances, a lot more chances. First half, first 20 minutes was decent. We created a lot more chances. And all I can think to myself is if we have Tierney and to a lesser extent Bellerin instead of Maitland-Niles and Saka, we would have had a lot better chance creation in terms of the quality of the chances, because the crosses today were bloody awful. The crosses were really, really poor. I just don't think that when you're looking at a team that creates so much from wide areas, that the final product has to be up there with the likes of Man City and Liverpool if we're going to take the chances that we create. But it wasn't. The amount of overhit crosses that there were. Nelson really struggled in that department as well. Aubameyang was really sort of, and Lacazette was as well, were definitely struggling to get the service in the first half that they needed. And I should say that, let's talk about Nelson briefly, because on social media, the backlash to Nelson really, really frustrated me. If it was up to me, would I have started Nelson over Pepe? No, I wouldn't have done. I would have started Pepe because I'm desperate for the Ivorian to hit form. However, just because it's not the person that I necessarily wanted to start doesn't mean I'm going to start slating him 20 minutes into a game, like plenty of people did on social media. And actually, with Nelson, had he have not been on the pitch, maybe we wouldn't have got that equaliser, because it was him that forced the ball across the box that led to Aubameyang scoring. And there's a lot of people that will say and turn around about, oh, but it wasn't an assist, it took a deflection. Well, I'm sorry, but if you're the type of fan that's going to try and try and shade one of our players by taking an assist away, maybe take a look at yourself. Take a look at yourself, because he put a lot of effort in today. Nelson arguably played the best game that he's done so far, especially the first 20 minutes. He was energetic. He tried running as much as he could. And there were times where it wasn't there for him. The final ball was quite poor on occasions. But this is a kid who's still very, very young. He's still very, very young. And we can sit there and blast him, oh, he's poor. He was awful. But I'm not going to sit here and just scathe a young kid who ultimately has got a lot of pressure on him, who's been given the responsibility by the coach, Arteta, to go out there and try his best. And I thought he had some really good runs. He took players on. He played some decent one-touch passes. But the thing is, and it's very human nature to do this, is that if you make a couple of errors, like crosses being over here or he loses the ball, for instance, let's just say those, if you take those into isolation, yes, you'd say he's been awful. He's been really poor today. But that's not the whole story. Nelson did a lot more than just a couple of misplaced crosses in that game. He took players on. He passed some decent short balls as well. He got the ball in behind a couple of times. And there was a couple of balls into the box that were actually quite accurate. And had Lacazette been a bit more in form, he could have taken them. In the first half, Nelson cut a really nice ball back to Lacazette. He scarred it over the bar. And so if you look at small errors in a player's game and take them as gospel, then you're going to overall have the opinion that this guy had a poor game. But I think it's very, very short-sighted to say that Nelson had a poor game, because you're only looking at very specific things. If you look at his game as a whole and what he did overall, you would say, actually, he did okay. And he will improve. He will get there. But, I mean, there were people tweeting years ago that this kid should be signed up with £1 billion buyout clauses and that he needs to be signed up as soon as possible. And I was one of the people saying that we need to keep hold of him because he's a really, really good player. He showed at Hoffenheim that he can do really well in flashes. Yes, he had a tougher time towards the end of the loan spell, but there's a lot of potential in this kid, a lot of potential. Let's talk about the other side. On the left-hand flank, we had Saka at left-back. Now, the other thing with this is that I can just see people saying, Robert Jones says, Saka was awful, Nelson was awful, Laka was awful, Ainsley Maitland-Niles was awful, rest not bad. And awful is a very, very... It's a very, very out there thing to say. Saying someone is awful is very easy to just go and criticise straight away. But let's look at Saka individually. I thought it was Saka's worst game, for sure. I don't think he had a great game at all. But we're talking about an 18. Is he 18? He's still 17, 18. I think he's 18. An 18-year-old that is playing out of position in a position that is not to his liking. It's not to his taste. This guy is an attacking wide player and a winger. He's not a left-back. And yet I can still see people going for Saka and saying that he was bad and he was awful. But can you blame the kid? Really? Can you blame the kid too much? He's playing out of position. Our two senior left-backs are gone. And everyone's going, he's awful. He's bad. Not everyone, I know. But a lot of people were going like that. And it's just really frustrating. As someone who tries to be as positive as they possibly can, it's really frustrating to just see people absolutely gunning for these guys, absolutely gunning for them, and people should really take a hard look at themselves. Positive sides. Lucas Torreira in the first half was the Lucas Torreira that we have been needing for so long. He really, really did nip in there like a little terrier, nicking the balls away, intercepting passes, driving the ball forward when he had the ball, playing at the deepest point in the midfield, and he did really well in that first half. Second half, there were some issues. I thought he lost the ball a couple of times where he necessarily didn't have to. He made a couple of mistakes. We caught out of position a couple of times, and that's down to the fact that we were trying to push for a goal, and instinctively he wanted to push further forwards. But first half, I thought he did really, really well. Really, really well. Let's have a look at some of your comments. Torreira was brilliant in the first half, says Omar. And Omar says, do you expect us to be merry after a draw? No, I don't. I don't expect you to be merry. I expect people to be supportive, is what I expect. I don't expect people to be up in arms and gunning for people. I don't get what people get out of it as one. I just think that you need to look at things and compartmentalize your opinions on different players and then think about how actually we can look at players in the ways that they played. Continuing on with the positives, I thought there were some really good performances. Granit Xhaka played really, really well. There were a couple of times where he did lose the ball in Granit Xhaka style. But actually, when you look at the broader sense of Granit Xhaka's game, his passing was good. The passes out wide to Saka on the left-hand side and Aubameyang were good. Switching it out to Ainsley Maitland-Niles and Nelson and Pepe as later in the game were also good. So I can't really fault, besides a couple of misplaced passes, and he lost the ball once, I think, in the middle of the park, which is a bit dangerous. But Xhaka, I thought, had a decent game, and it's very easy to criticise someone like Granit Xhaka, and it's very fashionable to do that. But I'm going to hold my hands up and say that he did okay. He did all right. Let's talk about their goal. This is, again, I think Saka has some blame in this because the Bournemouth player is able to run on the outside, and Saka's sort of not very aware of where he is. The pass is played, he's in behind, he plays it across, and what's his name, Gosling, was able to get in there ahead of our defenders. Now, this is something that Arsenal used to do a lot. Play the ball to the byline, cross it back, and get an easy tap in. And that goal was definitely something that we used to do a hell of a lot as Arsenal. And now we can't seem to defend against it very well. I think that there were times that we were very, very vulnerable on the counter-attack. That was down to the fact that our wide players, and Aubameyang on the left, Nelson on the right, didn't always cover Saka and Ainsley Maitland-Niles, and they left us quite exposed. Özil is never really going to be the guy to track back for me, and that leaves you with a little bit of vulnerability in the centre. But again, Torreira in the first half covered us quite well. Second half, as we tried to push for the goal, we were always going to leave more spaces in behind, and it nearly cost us. We're very, very lucky that their goal was offside in the second half that cost us, or rather cost them, from getting all 3 points. Let's have a look at some more of your comments. Anonymous T says, not clinical enough. And this is the main thing for today. The main theme for this game was that Arsenal were not clinical enough. Alexander Lacazette and Aubameyang missed a lot of chances in this game, skied a few over the bar. I think we had 7 shots at one point with none on target in the first half. It was really, really sort of concerning that we couldn't get those chances taken. And that, if you want to ask me why, you know that Lacazette and Aubameyang are top-class forwards that will finish these chances week in, week out when their confidence is higher, when they're in the frame of mind to be a bit better. But we as a team lack so much confidence right now. It was a really important game to try and win for confidence and it for being Arteta's first, obviously, game as head coach. But we couldn't quite get it. But the thing is, we didn't lose the game, which is also key. And you might turn around to me and say that's crazy. But the first thing that I did when Arteta was coming in was I said that people need to be patient. You really, really need to be patient with Arteta. You need to be patient with the season. In the league, I think we can all agree that the league is pretty much done. Like, we aren't really going to get anything from this season. I think the best we can hope for is try and get Europa League qualification guaranteed. But I think even that could be a push. And some people might argue that we shouldn't be in it to try and help us next season, that we don't have those things to have to worry about in Europe, and maybe we should do that to push ourselves forward. But even Europa League money is important financially for us in the transfer window. We're not going to get any investment from our owner, and financial fair play is up there with a big issue for us right now because of how much we have spent and not really made enough to make that back. So Europa League is important in terms of finances. So this league for me is a write-off, but we need to position ourselves in the best possible scenario to fight for the Europa League, for the FA Cup as well. And hopefully our league form will enable us to sort of test and try these systems and improve. And gradually the cohesiveness and the chemistry between the players will improve and get better. But it's going to take time. And we need to be patient. We 100% need to be patient. Matt Denny says, when we beat Chelsea and United top 4 all the way. That's the thing, is football can change so quickly. I'll be there on Sunday for the Chelsea game, and if we do manage to get a result against the Chelsea side that lost at home to Southampton today, then if we manage to do that, great. If we manage to beat them, that would be great. But it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot, and they are actually weirdly better away from home than they are at home at the moment. And it's going to be a tough game. Manchester United, obviously, they're on a bit of a tough run at the moment. There's no easy games. I saw Mike from the Gooners pod put a tweet out saying that literally no games right now, whether it be Olympiacos or Leeds or whoever's up next in the league, none of these games are easy for Arsenal. We can't be confident about any of them because we just don't know what to expect. GD2 says 9 draws. Yeah, I mean, we haven't got the winning mentality at the moment. Kitchener says, Arteta's first game and we can already see what he's trying to do. So many good chances for a cross. We needed Tierney. Yeah, losing Tierney is so damaging. So damaging. Losing Kolasinac even further because he would have created a lot better chances, I feel, than what Saka would have done. It's a really, really tough situation. Let's talk about Arteta then. Let's talk about what differences we did see. We created a lot more chances. We created a lot more chances than we have seen. I thought that actually we were more direct than we have been. The passes through the centre to Lacazette from David Luiz and Xhaka and Torreira at times was really good. Passing through the middle has been something that we haven't done a lot of during our time under Unai Emery and the short stint under Freddie Ljungberg. But we played passes centrally through their midfield because they were expecting us to go wide quite a lot. And that opened up space in the middle because they were convoluting sort of their wide areas. And that meant there was more space and more vulnerability in the midfield. And that led to David Luiz being able to play a couple of passes. And we just didn't take those chances. And it wasn't good enough. Clinically, that will improve. And you cannot say that this result is Arteta's fault. It's as basic as that. The reason we didn't pick up our points today goes down to our crossing and our wide areas not being good enough. And when we did get the ball into the box, it wasn't clinical enough. I don't think you can have a big go at the defence today. I don't think there was huge issues in regards to Socrates and David Luiz and Mustafi when they came on. You could argue maybe they could have done a bit better for the goal, but we can say that about against almost any goal that we concede. I think the main issues today were the clinical side of it and the wide areas not their final ball not being good enough. I think that's what you would boil this down to ultimately as to why we didn't get the win today. And you have to also give credit to Bournemouth. Bournemouth played an extremely good game. They looked organised. They had 2 flat banks of 4. King dropped into that midfield when he wasn't on the ball. And it was really, really strong and sturdy. And they hit us well on the counter. And they could and arguably should have won in certain scenarios. So maybe a point is good. Bournemouth away is never an easy tie. So there's that. Let's get through some of your comments before we wrap things up. Black Victory says, we made a handful of errors. That in itself is an improvement. The Pepe thing worries me slightly. So Pepe, when he came on, looked energetic. You'd expect that from someone who's been on the bench for 80 odd minutes. Hopefully he starts against Chelsea. Hopefully he was being rested for that. I think it was a big shame that we didn't have Martinelli. Arsenal Fly says, I don't want to rip into one of our own, but Nelson doesn't deserve to start. Pepe and Martinelli all the way for Nelson. I think that Martinelli and not having his energy and his charisma and his tenacity in that front line really did sort of let us down. Apparently he had a tight hamstring. That's why he wasn't in the squad. But still, in the midfield, we seem lacking. Ozil ran the show in the first half of his passing and his movement, his play, brung other players into the game, but Lacazette's final ball and his final shot let us down. He was taken off because we needed more energy. I think that was clear. Willock was an odd choice. I personally would have gone for Emile Smith-Rowe rather than Willock. I just don't think Willock is in any frame of mind right now or any sort of form whatsoever. He's become really quite poor, Willock, over the last 10, 12, 15 games or so. And I think Emile Smith-Rowe should have probably come on instead of Willock in that game. I'm really not sure why that didn't happen, but that was Arteta's choice. And at the end, we had a really, really good chance in Willock to kill the game and win it for us. But it was a really, really tame shot. Ramsdale is a very, very... I feel like he's an intimidating keeper, even though he's so young. He's actually someone that I would look at if Bayern Munich do come in for Bernd Leno. I'd be going straight to Bournemouth and saying, here's 20 million, we'll take Ramsdale from you, because he is a really, really top-class goalkeeper. Jabalani says, okay, I'm going to say this. I have never said this before. Never. Barring one mistake, Xhaka had a good game. There you go. See, it can be done. You can say that Xhaka had a decent game. Yeah, I think he made more than just the one mistake, ironically, but I thought he was okay. Goated. Pepe should have started and Xhaka and Luz held up the flow of the game. What do you mean held up the flow? I'm not sure what you mean, because actually Xhaka and Luiz's passing was kind of integral to a lot of our chance creation. 474 says, please pay note that Xhaka dropped down and played wide left defender. He had the same team splitting passes as Luiz. He definitely did. E-Man says, I slightly agree. Martinelli is the only one who is ready. Wow, that is a lot of points. 6 points from relegation, says GD2. That's scary. 9 draws and counting. Kareem says, Arteta made 3 big mistakes today. 1, starting Reece Nelson. 2, taking off Ozil when he did. And 3, bring on Pepe so late. Big mistakes? I think that's harsh. I think that is harsh. Xhaka was man of the match, says Webster. A lot of praise for Xhaka today. It's really, really good to see. I'm glad that you guys are picking up on that. Richard Cannon says, you guys should rewatch Nelson's performance. Wasn't perfect, but he drove us forward a few times and got us out of trouble for his work rate. Spot on, Richard. As I've been saying right from the start of the show, if you look at the crossing of Nelson in isolation, you're going to say that Nelson had a poor game. But that's simply not the full story. Nelson had a very decent game. He drove us forward, as Richard says. Some of the short passes were good, and actually some of the balls into the box on the ground, for instance, the ones that he cut back to Lacazette and Aubameyang were actually quite good. So you can bash the guy because you wanted Pepe to start, but you're wrong, and it's as simple as that. So I would have started Pepe 100%, but I'm not going to bash the kid. I'm not going to bash the kid because I thought he tried his hardest and did his best. Same with Saka. Think he had a quite poor performance, to be honest, but he's out of position. He's 18 years old. It's not where he wants to play, but he's doing a job for us because he has to. And that's about it. That is about it. Matthew Garner says, I can see improvement. I thought our shape was more like City. We played in a 2-3-5, which looked good. A lot of our things to build up. 2-3-5. Do you mean 5-3-2? We played in a 2-3-5. Wow, I've never heard of that formation before in my life. Amina says, the players are a joke, mate. Arteta can't coach these players. Our midfield is not good enough. We were poor physicality. I don't agree with that. I don't think Arteta. I think Arteta has got a great chance of coaching these players. I think that if you look at the short amount of time that he's had with the team, the influence he's had in terms of chance creation and frequency, I think that you can say he's had an impact in this short space of time. He's had 3 days. 3 days. That is it with this first team, with all the players. That is it. So he's had longer with the squad, but with the whole first team, because the players recovering from the Everton match, he's only had 3 days. So, I mean, if you're going to go and criticise Arteta after 3 days of coaching, as I said at the start, take a look at yourself, because I just don't get how you can criticise it. I just don't get it. I really, really don't. I'm going to wrap things up there. Enjoy your Boxing Day. I hope you had a really, really good Christmas, of course. Enjoy the rest of your day, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Like the video if you've enjoyed it. In the comment section, if you are watching on playback, tell me what you think of the game. Try and be honest, try and be critical, but don't overreact. Don't slag players off that don't need to be slagged off. I think we did a decent game today. I think we really, really did. I think that Bournemouth is a hard place to go to. I think we're in some awful form, and we could have lost that game, and we didn't. And I think if we'd have been a little bit more clinical, you might have seen us take all 3 points today. I'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.